Right, guys. So, welcome to the first live webinar that Stu and I have put together. This webinar is really about delivering in June. So, we want to provide some pretty clear action items to take away to ensure that this June is a really good result. Obviously, it's been a pretty tough couple of months with what's gone on with isolations and lockdowns and things like that. So, what we want to do is come and have some really clear plans for you to go about having a successful June. You know, this is a big time for us. So just some housekeeping to start with. Chat's on the side there, so jump in with comments anytime you want. But one thing we do have is you'll notice on your link there down the bottom, the menu items, you've got Q&A. So that's really for questions that you want to put to Stu and I that we can answer. We'll do that at the end. If you put them in the chat, sometimes they disappear too far up and we won't actually get to them. So stick them in the Q&A and we can answer them at the end of the presentation. But in the meantime, we'll jump in and ask you guys to contribute from a chat point of view. There's also a raise your hand. So actually a bit of a test. If everyone wants to go and hit their raise their hand now, go for it. The other housekeeping rule is usually we always tell people where the toilets are. I'm pretty sure the toilets are still in the same place they were right now. So don't go get lost and trying to find your way to the toilet. But hopefully we'll be 45 minutes or so. So hopefully you can hold on until then. But like I said, chat's there. Jump in. We'll keep an eye on it and Q&A for the end. But too easy. So like we said, 45 minutes. We want to talk about delivering this June. So Stu and I, most of you would have worked with one of us over the recent years. So this is really about, like we said, making the most of this June because we want to kick goals. We want to make it happen. So Stu, I know you've got a really good analogy for June. So give it to us.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Welcome everyone. I'm so happy to have you guys along. I also do want to apologise because I realised I've probably got a face for radio when I look at the screen at the moment, and I just go, yeah. If you want to mute the face, I'll get it. The analogy for you guys who've worked with me before, you know I like an analogy, and for me, the one I think is most appropriate for this one is like we've played all season and we've made the grand final, and I want to think about what would a coach and a captain of a team do in that week leading up to the grand final. And this is the time for us to start thinking about that kind of stuff. Yeah. The other bit I really want you guys to be aware of, Marty and I aren't here to tell you to do stuff because that's not what we do. Our job today is probably to remind you. I'll almost guarantee you that lots of the stuff we'll talk about are things that you may know, you may be doing some of them. But it gives you a chance to do a checklist of things that what could I be doing, what could I do more of, what could I do less of, in this really important time. And there'll be so many things that come into the conversation that will be different for each of you. And so as we go along, as Marty said, some chat conversations, some Q&A, and certainly what we want to be able to have you guys think about is that at the end of today, if there's some serious things that you'd like us to talk about, you get in contact with us because we can help you out, because good football teams support each other before, during and after the game, and we want to be able to do that as we go along.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, grand final is a really good analogy, and like you said, it's the intensity of training or the intensity of focus that we right now. So.
And Marty, one of the things I would like these guys to think about, and so for all of you guys, if you can, I'm going to ask you to write down 2 words of what happens with most sports people. Some of you will know I have a mate of mine who's a rugby league coach. I played a lot of sport growing up. I coached lots of teams. There are 2 things that are basically the same thing, but they are significant. And first one is we lose focus on what's important. And we lose focus. So the first one is we lose focus. The second one is what causes us to lose focus? We get distracted by things that may or may not be as important as we think they are.
Yeah.
So as we go through, my conversation will be, are you losing focus or are you being distracted by some of these things? And that will give us a chance to have a look at what we talk about. Marty.
Yep, too easy. Okay, so focus, structure, process is something that we talk about quite a bit. So that will essentially be the model and the pattern that we follow. The other thing we're going to use is the Simon Sinek model. So Stu and I are a big fan of Simon Sinek. He wrote the book Starts With Why, plus The Infinite Game and a bunch of other things. It's a really good model to work with because it fits the focus, structure, process, because it's the why, the how, and the what. So if we look at it that way, most companies don't really or don't know or don't understand or don't work to their why. So the biggest thing we want to do is know what our why is. Apple's a perfect example. first $1 trillion company. They know their why. They work to it really well. And Simon writes a lot about Apple in the book because they're a great example. A lot of things we do, we know what we do, we know how we do it, we don't necessarily know why. So our why at the moment is obviously a massive June. We're going to succeed in our grand final. We're going to do well. How are we going to do it? Great leadership management, strategies, tools, and ideas. What we're going to do? Focused and relevant goals, clear action plans, concise and constructive feedback. And again, like I said at the start, that's really about this webinar is what things can we go and do tomorrow or today to make June successful. This is not about changing the way you do everything. It's not about changing the process that you undertake or your team undertakes. It's about going, okay, cool. I'm going to go away and go 1, 2, 3. I can put them in place straight away. So how we're going to do that is we're going to really focus on you as an individual, your team, and then your customers. So we'll categorize them into the 3. So the action plan we emailed out to you guys is just on the screen here now. And what we want to do is we want to break that down into 7 days, 14 days, and 30 days. So what we'd like you to do is take some notes, the things that are most effective to you or things that you can use, and just stick them into that action plan in the 7 days, 14 days, or 30 days, wherever it fits for you. And then if you want to have a chat with Stu and I after this, if you want to catch up, and if you've got that completed, you can refer back to that and we can work on that together, and we can give you some pointers and get you in the right direction. So again, I'm a horrible planner. I always say that, but I know when I write things down, it certainly works a whole lot more. And one of the things Simon Sinek says is, if your why is not written down and other people don't know about it, it is just a figment of your imagination. So you've really got to understand, and this is the step to getting us into that point. Would you agree, Stu?
Yeah, Marty, I love Simon's work, as you said, but Joe Dispenza, who's one of my favourite authors at the moment, talks about the writing down changes the way your brain's physiology deals with things. And more importantly, it's not just the writing down, is it somewhere where I can see it every day? Joe's work says that if I'm going to be serious about turning an action plan into a legitimate goal, I need to disrupt. We're going to use that word a couple of times today. I'm going to disrupt my brain's pattern of unconscious behavior at least 3 to 5 times a day. So can I see that goal somewhere? Can it remind me and take me back to the priorities of my day as opposed to the things that just get my attention? Because you and I both know, and I'm sure everyone who's listening to us today will know, that June is so full of things that need to be done. We can get caught up with activity that may or may not be helpful for us.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, if you've heard of Simon Sinek, or you've read some of his stuff, or you've seen him on LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that, just write Simon in the chat so that we kind of know that. All right. So starting with you, let's kick off with that, because really it all starts with how we go about it. So what do we do with you? So Stu, I might get you to kick off with you. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, you might surprise the guys out there. Most of them won't be. I've been reading a few books. There's a guy in the UK by the name of Larry Hocker, and he's one of his lead things at the moment is busy as the new stupid. You know, we talk to people all the time, and how you go? I'm busy. And we kind of use that as a way to say, I've got no time or space to get anything specifically done, or I've got so many things on. And I want people to be careful about the busy. And I'm going to go back to my sport analogy, and running around an oval is different to playing a game.
Sure.
And so I want the guys to think about, we can get busy running around, and we can, you and I have both run dealerships. Everyone in the chats with us today has run some roles in dealerships. We can all be busy. The conversation is, am I being productive?
Yeah.
You know, like the question I want people to think about is, how productive was I today, not how busy was I today?
Yeah.
And part of that comes down to this conversation around, am I managing people or am I leading people? The difference is, management is I have a structure that I hold people into. Leading is I take them where they want to go. And so we want to have people start thinking about a couple of things around this conversation. How can I become productive? What are the things that are going to help me be very clear about what I'm doing and whether I'm moving in the right direction? Am I checking myself out enough to make sure I have that happen? Am I proactive? Well, what does that mean? Do I stop? So one of the conversations we would talk to the guys today about is, how often am I stopping in my day and going, is what I'm doing right now moving me in the direction of my goal or my focus? Is what I'm doing right now the best thing for me? Is what I'm doing right now best for the result?
Yeah.
3 questions that we can write down. So am I on focus? Am I on purpose? And have I got the right activity?
Yep.
And then the last one that goes with this for me is, this is when, I played some representative sport when I was a kid. And I remember one of my coaches saying, Stuart, don't be confused that when you go out to play a game, it can be completely different to playing to win. Anyone can play the game, but you need real focus and intent to win. And one of the conversations I want to share with these guys is, how clear is your intent to win in June? Because if you're not clear about your intention, you can't pass that on to the other guys in the team.
And I guess that comes down to you always hear that in sport analogies is, that the other person just wanted it more.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that we talk about that desire, we talk about that focus. And it's a really crucial part for me around this. Am I playing the game or am I playing to win? Playing to win, we need to be very clear about what we're doing here.
Yeah.
June's a play to win month as far as I'm concerned.
You,
we know the guys are going to get busy.
Yeah.
But I think the other bit we can throw into this one is about stuff like attitude, Marty. I know you've got some stuff on that for the guys.
Yep. Yeah, and that's probably the first thing. So is my focus for you guys today is to really look at what's your attitude and behavior. So what are you doing? And like Stuart said, what I want you to be doing is I want you to be checking in, going, okay, cool. What's my attitude? What's my behavior? How am I going to ensure that's in line with the focus that I've got, the intent that I've got for this June and this period? So then we go into what's the goal, what's the focus, and then how are you managing and leading? So it's really important when you're thinking about and you're writing things down in your action plan now, think about your team and what you're going to do and how you're going to go about it. And with that is your attitude behavior, because that drives everything that you're going to do. Yeah. So it's really important that you do that. So, hey, if you're up for winning, type win in the chat. I know that I'm definitely up for it. So big time. So it's really important that we go about that. So I guess taking that idea and that theory and putting it into play, and just sort of building on what you mentioned just earlier, Stuart, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to think about going, okay, am I stopping in the morning? It can be before you get to work, and be having breakfast, whatever, and thinking, okay, what's my attitude and behavior today? What's my focus and my goal today? And if you do that and you're very, very clear with it, then you walk into work or into the activity you're about to undertake with a clear intent.
Yeah, good.
And then the other thing I would like you to do is I want you to do that again 2 to 3 times throughout the day. It's really important, because it's great to think in the morning and go, okay, cool, yeah, this is going to be my thing, this is what I'm going to do. And you have that conversation with yourself, brilliant, excellent. But then you get to 3 o'clock and you've never checked in to go, okay, hang on a minute, because you got busy doing stuff. And that's the point of the difference between being busy and being proactive. So hold yourself to account on that. And really, in this next 30 days, you've got to go, okay, cool, what's my intent in the morning? What's my intent at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever the times are that work, to be really sure that you're on task and on focus.
Yeah, perfect.
Explain that okay?
Marty, can we just throw one other thing for the guys? My bit, and we talk about this a lot in our work, but it's one of my crucial bits, and I think it needs to be done with more clarity now, is that at the end of each day, just stopping yourself after you've done your check-ins 2 or 3 times, what were the 3 best things I did today? What were the 3 things I could change tomorrow? Because it just... That personal reflection allows us to think about it. And my preference will be you do that as close to the game as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Again, I'm going to use my mate who's the coach. He sits down with his players, first grade rugby league, he sits down with them almost directly after the game. What went well? What would you change? I want it while it's fresh. I want it while it's new. And
we'll definitely cover that in the team section as well. So, why don't actually raise your hand, hit the little raise your hand button if it's something that you are currently doing, or it's something that you want to be doing, or think that it's definitely going to add value to your day. I'd love to see that. I'm raising my hand here because I don't have a button. So, all right. So that's you guys. So that's what we want you to do now. So we want you to go about doing that. Get really clear on the intent that you want to drive, and then have those check-ins throughout the day for yourself. So, Stu, moving on to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you do? And we've got some stuff there on the slide. It's pretty clear, but let's explain it so that we're really precise on what we do for the next 30 days.
So we already talked, Marty, about the why. The why is we want to win this grand final. We want to make June a bumper month. We want to maximise the opportunity it offers. What do we do? So we want to talk about in general what we do, because our next slide will be how we do it. But our first one is what to do. Is we should have some specific goals, and they should be specific goals for the team and specific goals for individuals. Team goals are crucial. We want to win the game. But if I go to the person who plays in one position, their goals for the game might be different to someone else's goals for the game.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with individual competency, individual skills, individual talents, length of time or duty.
Yep.
We need to get those goals very clearly defined. And you and I have talked about this for years with the NLP stuff we do. You can't give people goals in this framework, because if they don't own the goal, they'll never own the process. So the more they own it, the more they will do something about it.
Yep.
Once we break down, if we have a team goal, and I would encourage you to have a specific team goal, and you can put some incentives around that if you want, depending on your team, we need to break that down into individual focus and structure and process, because every person has different requirements and different needs. And one of the things that becomes crucial when stress goes up inside the human body, all the research tells us we need to spend more time with individuals. And so in our proactive time, one of the things, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a minute, is that we've got to spend more time with the individual.
Yep.
And we'll talk about what that could look like. But taking time to spend time with people individually becomes a crucial part of the habits of success.
Yeah. Let me just jump in there, Stu. And I worked at a dealership for over 10 years, and I made every mistake possible. I had a lot of great success, and I know we're probably sitting here thinking, and I generally can see it in people's eyes when we are face to face, a little bit different in Zoom, but people are like, I don't have time for that shit. And that's just reality, right? And I get it, and I've used that excuse, but this comes back to the busyness and proactivity. So it's probably something I'd like you guys to write down in your action plan. Work out, and again, you've got to work out how you can do it in your world, in your dealership, in your business, in your retail outlet, whatever it is, to ensure that you are being proactive in it. Like, I love this. Jess has written a comment. She's now set an alarm to check in.
Oh, nice.
Today, which is a great idea. So again, hold yourself to account, because you're the manager, you're the leader. You've got to get this set for your team as well.
And Marty, it's a wonderful point. And after running a large dealership like you have, I know that there are some times when I can't get to any individual. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but there are some people we don't need to do it. So our high performers who are naturally doing well, we don't need to go and see them individually, but we might get them to do some individual work with some of the other people.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a minute, but we don't have the ability to tell you what to do, and that's not our intention today. But we know that when we spend time with individuals, we make it personal. And this is kind of like, for me, the conversation we have with the work we do when we do customer-based work, is that, one of my first rules of working with the customer is make it personal. One of my first rules of working with staff is make it personal.
Yep.
And so this individual one rates right up there. Once we key goals is really crucial.
Yeah, and look, and like as a real action item to take away, and I'd love to get people's opinion on this. And guys, raise your hand if you think this could work in however you do it. What if you sit down with people, have a phone call, have an email, whatever, say, and the simple question in the morning is, what does success look like for you today?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 30 days. It doesn't have to be 3 months or a year. What does success look like for you today? So if you guys think that could work and you agree with it, hey, raise your hand, say yes in the chat, whatever suits. But that way you are focused specifically on the individual people. We've got some agreements. Yeah. Sweet.
Well done.
Guys.
Good. We're making sense. I'm concerned.
Yeah, that does. I really appreciate everyone hanging around and looking at
next one.
Yep.
Well, we need to have some clear measurements of performance and process. Again, and I've fallen into this when I was running the dealership, is that the busyness and all the other things you do, you just touch this one, but how am I going to measure their effectiveness? How am I going to measure what they change? Because Most of you will know, if you've been to any of my workshops, a saying that's gone on nearly every board that I've ever written on in my life is activity equals results. Do I understand the activity that drives the results? Because if you don't understand what activity you're doing, you can't change them. If you don't know what results you are, you can't measure them. And so we need both sides of the equation, but we need to take some time each day to have the people in our teams and our individual people look at those things and understand them.
Yeah, it's also really good. It's actually a good word to replace for busy. I've got a lot of activity on at the moment. Instead of saying I'm busy, I've got a lot of activity on at the moment, because then you get to say, okay, what's that activity look like?
Yeah.
Builds much more context around what you're actually doing. So yeah, I mean, activity equals results is one of my favorite things. I'm sure that everyone I've coached and trained look at me and roll their eyes and think, why are you saying that to me again? It's important. So yeah, really big thing to ensure that. So guys, again, coming into these next 30 days, something like that sits really well with you. Activity equals results, for example, did with me when Stu taught me that about 8 years ago.
How many years ago?
A lot of years ago.
when you had hair and I had hair, so that was how long ago it was.
Exactly. So, okay, cool. All right. I mean, I like what we do. So let's talk about how are we going to do it? That's the question.
Yeah. So 3 things for me, and we've covered them on the left-hand side. If I'm playing in a grand final, I know the coach is going to have a daily check-up with the team. Where are we at as a team? What's working? What's not? And that's kind of going to be part of the concept. Am I checking in? Am I making sure the attitude's right? Am I checking that the focus is right? Has everyone got some activity that's constructive, valuable, and useful to them and to the team?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So
just a reminder, if you've got any questions about how or what you're going to do for what we've covered so far, stick in the Q&A so we can cover it off later on. So yeah.
So that's the first bit. And there's 2 reasons for the daily meeting. Is it because I want the successful people to be telling stories to the people who may not have had the success that someone had. Yep. I want the people who are having a bad time to be challenged by the people who are having a good time. Not be challenged because they're dumb or stupid, because I work in the same place and someone was able to sell 3 cars yesterday, but I wasn't. What are they doing? And this is part of good leadership, because leadership agitates for people to hear the good stories that other people have and challenge mediocrity or poor performance.
Yeah, I did that recently. I'll give you a real life example, guys. I was working with an individual doing a coaching session in a dealership. Literally the salesperson next to him in the next cubicle had been selling cars at retail or close to retail. And he was telling me about it. And he's like, I don't know how he's doing it. I said, well, let's ask him. So the 3 of us sat down, we spent 45 minutes together. We pulled it all apart. And then, so when I leave that dealership, I'm like, okay, cool. Jack, your job now is to help Brad. Brad, your job is to ask Jack questions, and I want you guys to work together. So it's really important, because again, as a leader and a manager, what we want for you is, we don't want to load you with more work and more energy and more effort into doing things. We want to get you to share the load a little bit. So like you said, get the high performers to share their stories and help those that maybe aren't reaching their targets or a little bit below.
Yeah. And then, Marty, the next bit for the group to think about here is, okay, I've done my daily meeting, which is just to give the team together and give them that sense of it. But then it's to drill down one-on-one. It's very easy, from my experience in a group, for the quieter people or some of the people aren't performing to hang back or hide or give platitudes to a conversation in a group. But in one-on-one, can't do that. I can look them straight in the face and go, what have you done? What's working? What's not? How did that work yesterday? How can we help you today? I can check in on them with activity. I can listen to some of their phone calls they've made. I can review some of the things that they've done. And I can go a lot deeper into the detail on the one-on-one. Now, you made a really important conversation. Does that mean I have to do one-on-ones with everyone in my team? No, but one-on-one review should happen. So the successful guys could be working with the guys who aren't doing so well. That example you've given is a wonderful one. Or if I'm really stretched for time, I'm going to put my effort as a manager into the people who I think are going to get the most causative change from my discussion.
Yeah. And also, and review can be a bit of a daunting word. It can be a relatively quick, simple chat. You know, what's going on, what's working, what's not working, what do you want to improve on today? And that it could be that simple. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 15 minutes. It doesn't really matter. But so don't think that you've got to collate a whole bunch of information. You literally sit down and say, what does success look like for you today? What did you do well yesterday? What do you want to fix, change, and improve for today? And how will we know that you've done that?
Yeah.
Very, very simple conversation, very simple questions, done in 5 to 8 minutes, I think.
Yeah. And the reason those 2 meetings exist is that we're looking for them to think about constructively and think about that consciously. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I continue doing? And for me, on the right-hand side of the page are just 2 of the simple questions I've used for a very long time, which gives me that ability both at a team level and at an individual level to challenge people to think. What are you doing that's working well? And what are you doing that you could change? And that could be, we could have that conversation at a team, and it would happen at a individual level as well. Because if the more conscious people become of their behavior, the more able they are to change them. That is one of the greatest things around proactivity. I consciously decide what I'm going to do. I consciously think about what I'm going to do. I consciously evaluate what I've done and decide whether to keep doing it or not. Yeah. And I'd be interested from the guys, if they can give us a chat, how do you like those questions? Are they valuable? Are they useful? Could you use them? Type conversation. I'd be really interested to hear what they've got to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, a simple. If in the chat, why don't you write idea or ideas if you've already got some things that you're going to start to think about. So,
okay.
The problem is I've got ideas and I'm thinking about a whole bunch of other things at the time, and I should be listening to you. I do love your voice, Stuart. I do promise. I'm sure everyone else does as well.
Yeah. I've heard that shit before.
All right. Murray's got lots. Jay-Z's got ideas. Yep. Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Okay. So your customers are relatively important, as we know. And I think so often we focus a lot on what we're doing. We focus a lot on what the organization is doing or the team's doing, but the customers is really important. And this is one of my favorite sayings that I learned from you, Stuart, again, many moons ago, and I used it a lot. Success and failure leaves clues. It's really, really great. And one of the things we know from NLP is that everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got or what they know at the time. Yeah. Right. So the general intent is always in a positive. So positive regard, we have people are trying to do the right thing and they don't always necessarily do, as staff members, as customers, whatever that is. So things do go wrong. We do fail at times, not a problem. But why did we fail? What went wrong and how do we change it? Or why do we succeed? And this sort of goes back to the team meeting that you're talking about. Why is someone having success? What's working for them? What are those clues? Why is someone possibly having some failures? And what are the clues to those?
Yes. And Marty, there are 2 parts to this conversation that are really important for me to share with the guys today. We've known, you and I have talked about it, and I've had a conversation with lots of clients over the last 12 months. There are some serious changes happening in the market for sales and service departments. Just unbelievable changes. And COVID has just thrown that all out the door. It's just made huge differences. And we're going to have to really swim hard to get on top of this if we're going to get on some understanding. And I'm going to give you the example, and I know you've heard the story, Marty, so my apologies, but in my early stages of my career back in the early 80s, I would best describe myself as a very average sales consultant. And I worked for a guy called Bruce Rogers. And Bruce Rogers did something for me on the first Friday I worked with him. He called me and I'd had a pretty good week. I was pretty happy with it. Smug would probably be a better word. Yep. And he pulled it apart. And he goes, he was the one who gave me this quote, success and failure leave clues. So he pulls all this stuff apart and he goes, here's what you've done well. Here's what you're happy with. Yep, good. And we had the conversation. He goes, now, what about failure? And I go, no, I had a good week. He goes, no. He looks at my numbers. He goes, so Stuart, let's have a look at it. You saw this many people and you got this many sales, and it equated to just over 4 to 1. Right? Which, some people might have those sales numbers today, and that's okay. So he looked at me, he goes, so 25% of the population you saw said yes, and 75% said no. Do we know why they said no? And I'm gone, no. He says, so we're going to find out. So he sat me down in front of him, he turned his earphone on, and he rang 5 of my customers. And I sat there in cringe because for some unknown reason, some of those people said some not so nice things about me, but I heard them from the customer. So am I suggesting we do that today? Maybe. And one of the conversations, if I was in a dealership today and I was moving back into wanting to maximize the performance, I want to maximize my content and my contact with customers.
Okay.
So, for example, if I'm a sales manager today and I've had 5 people come into my dealership on Monday and 4 of them left without buying a car, and I found out that 3 of them had bought a car somewhere else, I would ring at least one of them and say something like, "Hey, Marty, it was great to have you into the dealership. Thanks for coming in. Can you give me a minute to ask you a couple of questions?" Yeah, go for it. If we could have done one thing that could have helped us give you a reason to stay and purchase a vehicle from us, what would that be?
Yeah.
And I think we can do that at both a sales and a service part. Now, why would I want you to think about that? Because customers are changing right now. And I don't want you to make decisions as a business. I don't want any business to make decisions based on what I think is happening in the marketplace. I need to get really hard evidence from a person called a customer. And the more of those we talk to, the better information we have. But I would be going to the majority. Who's the majority? The people who don't buy from us.
Yeah.
And those 2 simple questions: what made you not choose us, and what could we have done to make you stay? And this is relevant for me in both sales and service. We are going to have to.
You know what? Can everybody just, if you've done that, or you think it's a good idea, raise your hand for me so we know. It's a terrifying thing. I've done it. I didn't do it enough. So everyone's on board with that one too. I just want to quickly, sorry to interrupt there, Stu, but I just want to
go for it.
And as a great idea that someone's written in, sent us a private message. He's now created a quick grid for 5 of us in his team, including himself. They're going to set a goal for the day that we share, and the next morning they'll review what they've achieved out of the day's goal out of the 5, and then how they can do a post review of how we can support each other and do that regularly. Mate, awesome. Great idea.
How good is that?
That's very real, tangible, actionable items that you can do every single day. Love it, mate. Awesome. This is so good. Sorry.
Well done.
Yeah,
man, I'm excited now.
Right. Now, and cool. Okay, sorry, go on, mate. I interrupted again.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's never happened before, so it's the first time I'm used to it, right?
Yeah, those that know us know we've got a very similar profile. So when one's talking, the other one's very itchy to start talking. So.
Yeah, why don't you shut up so I can? So I'm covered pretty much most of the conversations. One of the things that we're going to ask you to do over the month of June is, proactivity for me says call one customer a day. And my preference would be the one who said no, the one who hasn't come back, or the one who's given us some feedback that lets us know that they don't want to come back. Let's find out, because we're going to get bucket loads of information from the manufacturer or from our dealer principal or from our organisation around our customer surveys about why people bought from us, but they're not the majority of people who come through the doors of our business. Let's start talking to the majority. And I know that at the moment it's a difficult task, but it's a really crucial one. What do they need from us? And because I think this is a step change piece, Marty, is that this is not just stepping ourselves to make sure June works. This is about how we make July, August, September, October, November, December work, because customers are going to have different buying patterns. There's going to be subtle clues that let us know. And I don't want to be sitting there in December going, oh my God, look what's happened, when I could have found out in June or July.
Yep.
So,
yeah, one of the things in my dealership, and I'm sure some of you guys that are here now would suffer from this, is I remember it used to we do our monthly reviews, and sometimes it would be on the 12th or the 15th of the following month, and it just became redundant. I changed my whole pattern. I said, instead of doing monthly, we should be doing, and even year-long plans, we just did 7 days.
Yeah.
Quick reviews. What's going to happen the next 7 days? What do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? Write it down. Great. No worries. How'd you go? Did this, didn't do that. Okay, no worries. How do we change things to ensure that you achieve it this week? It's on the go. You've got, this is what we're going to think about with the sales process in June. Typically it's shortened quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because customers are coming in. We know they're coming in. If they're coming in now, they're pretty serious to buy. A lot of people aren't going out. So we know that. So they're there with a really high chance and high probability they are going to buy. And the process is going to be shortened. And that's okay. But we need to be sure that we know how to get out of that as well when we move into July, August, and September, because it's going to be hard. Q3 will be tough.
Yeah. And so this conversation then becomes, again, we take that conversation. I don't mind if a process gets shortened, but is it shortened because the customer wants it to be, or we want it to be?
Yep.
And one of the conversational things that I've got in some of the research I'm reading at the moment is that we know customers are going to look for high intensity relationship and value right now.
Yep.
And if we do take the shortcuts, and I'm going to actually give you permission to do it, but do it because the customer says, no, I don't need that bit. I'm already there or whatever. But
correct.
So it's a really important bit. But again, I want to take the other piece that you talked about, Marty. Again, I'm going to use football teams. I know my mate, the coach, they sit down and feedback after training. So, you know, they train today and they sit down and go, okay, let's look at some of the measurements. So they don't wait a week. They don't wait 2 weeks to give feedback. They do it daily. So this ties into the conversation. And I don't want someone to create a habit that, you know, I do something on Monday and then I do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we sit down and we go, that wasn't so good. Oh yeah, but I only did it for a week. You just lost 6 days. And in a month like June, I can't afford to have 6 days of bad performance, attitude or process. I need to be able to catch that on a daily basis with the team.
Yeah, you're right. And perfect. I mean, the coach that you talk about is those that don't know is one of the greatest NRL coaches there ever has been, who's had great success and one of the greatest players ever. And he's highly analytical and very, very technical in the way he goes about his business, but it works for him. He's very successful. So I guess pulling it all together, if we think about even that as an example, and when we, you know, used to follow a process, we used to do certain things, and then you see people take shortcuts because they take a shortcut and it works. Their brain goes, hey, I told you, you don't need to do that anymore. And that happens. We're humans, right? We're inherently lazy. We like to take the shortest path possible, and that's fine. But if we go back to knowing what our focus is, what our why is, it's very easy to get back to the how and the what based out of what the why is. Because even if we drop something for a week or a month, whatever it is, if you know the why, you can come back to it very, very easily. So that's kind of encompasses the whole lot. Would you agree, Stu?
Yeah. I love the analogy, Marty, is that we filter all behavior, all attitudes, all focuses, all structure through the goal or the why. The only measurement should always go through we start with why are we doing it, then we do the measurement downwards. We don't go, oh, the process is not working. Well, in accordance with what? So a process is only valuable in accordance with a goal. Structure is only important in accordance with a goal. So always go back to the why. Great conversation.
Cool. Okay. Easy hands. Raise your hand, guys, if this has all been of value or you find some bits and pieces that you can take away. Nice one. Excellent. Cool. Good. I'm glad we provided some stuff that's going to be of value, because at the end of the day, like we said, it's our grand final. So moving on to questions, I'll just open up the Q&A. So one of the questions, if you were to recommend just one thing for dealership leaders to start doing, what would that be? Secondly, what would be the one thing that they should stop doing? Well, that's a good question. We'll answer that live, I reckon.
Yeah, you want me to have a first shot at that one?
Start doing.
Let me have a first shot at the first one. If I was going to do one thing and one thing only, it would be take individuals and team to goal. It would be my first point, big time. A team with focus is a team with direction. It's a team with the ability to measure and look at what it's doing. No goal, no direction, anything can be justified. So goals is one of the best filter system your brain has for right or wrong, good or bad, average or poor or excellent. So goal would be my crucial bit. That conversation. How about you?
And, what would be the one thing they should stop doing?
I think one of the things for me, and this is going to be a really interesting one, is that we need to stop doing things for people that they can do for themselves. One of the things, and this happened for me, I don't know how many times when I was running the dealership, I would step in and rescue, step in support, step in and help when people had the skills or the ability to do things. And it's seen as being a very helpful thing, and it can be. It can also be a case of them delegating up.
Yeah.
And so, be careful about it. For me, the big stop is stop doing things for people that they can do for themselves.
Yep, absolutely. Too easy.
And stop being the only person who has the answer, the ideas, or the suggestions. Share the role of leadership with the people in your team.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Now, Paul, I got a question for me there, which is actually a really good one. I'm glad you've raised it. So basically what he's saying is, with regard to the comment about going to a 7-day kind of plan or review structure, how do we shift the industry and teams to start looking at the long game with our plans? And that's a really, really good point. And anyone who knows me really well, I'm big on vision. You know, one of the biggest arguments I used to have with the general manager of sales with my manufacturer was, I hate this 30-day vision. We should be looking at the long game, and we never did, right? So it's a really good point. And what I want to kind of preface around that is, Paul, if we introduce the vision and the long game, the why, it's the activity within that I want to look at constantly within a shorter period. So if we've still got the why up there, the vision, which is the focus, how we go about doing it and what we do about that is done more on a micro level. So, you know, Gary Vee is a really good example. He always talks about think macro, so really big, but work micro at lightning speed. So be really patient in what we're doing up here with our vision, but we've got to be really fast down at the micro level.
Yeah,
we're going,
sure.
okay, cool, so we can make adjustments pretty quickly. So I hope I've explained that okay. I hope that it makes sense to adjust the earlier comments.
Can I throw something in there, Marty? Was it Paul who asked that?
Yep.
Paul, it's a sensational question. It's been one of my frustrations for the last 25 or so years. One of the conversations for me is this one. Give yourself permission to go to 90 to 180-day goals for yourself. So although you may report 30 days to the manufacturer or your DP, have 6-month goals for you and your team.
Yeah.
And the reason I would like you to think about that is because the minute you take a longer term view, you start to develop the habits of success as opposed to the need to be reactive. Short-term goals, anything less than a 90-day goal, drives reactivity. It drives busyness and it drives distraction.
Yep. And I remember sitting in a review with an end of month review with a salesperson who sold 2 cars. Target was 9. It's a premium segment, so 9 cars. And I said to him, can you look me in the eyes and tell me you did everything you need to do to be successful? And he's like, yep. I go, okay. Can you look yourself in the eye and do the same thing? He said, yep. I go, okay. So what happened the first 5 days of the next month? 6 deals. Drop like that.
Yeah.
So the work was done. So I was okay to work. And yeah, we want to get the number, and I absolutely get that. And I had to deal with the manufacturer. And I know there's a few area managers on here that I've had. So g'day guys. But at the end of the day, the work had been done, the results will come. So I was really happy with that. I had the same thing with a state manager of an IT recruitment company the other day, saying this person's good. They just need to get deals, and they need to get deals. And a week later, I talked to them, 8 sales dropped in, because the work had been done. So it's really important that we monitor that. Cool. Hope that was all good, Paul. Now, let me look. So Darren, he's got asked customers why they didn't buy a specialty service, as they are worth more than any new car purchase. He knows that good old saying in dealership that the salesperson sells the first car and the service department sells the next 3 to 4, which is really, really important. So he's also suggesting, sales department to work the service lane harder, 100%. I never worked it out as a sales manager or a GSM or a general manager for that point. So I know some dealerships do it really well. So if you're in your network, someone that's doing it well, get on the phone to them, ask them. Because I know that we are very competitive in certain industries, but we're also happy to share as well. So that's a great idea, Darren, absolutely.
Marty, can I just throw one thing for that one on the service lane? I'm a fan of service lane work. Most of the accounting firms will tell us something that sounds like this. If you work in a metropolitan dealership, about 50% of the people who are having their car serviced at your dealership today didn't buy it there.
Yep.
And my question is, why are they there? Do we know the relationship they have with us or with the other people? And aren't we developing that? If you're in a dealership today where you are going to have small numbers of people for whatever reason coming into your dealership in June, and you can't maximize the efficiency of your sales consultants, I'd get a list of your service clients. Anyone who's got a car that's over 3 years old, anyone who's got a car out of warranty framework, anyone who's going to spend over $1,000 today on their car, I'd be having a chat to them. I'd be making a conscious decision, not necessarily on the day, but certainly in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, too easy. All right, we just hit 46 minutes. So, to be honest, it's a miracle that Stu and I have even got to that point. But Darren's had if you're doing a 7-day plan, and the month and year are covered, are they not? Absolutely, that's right. So again, it's that that having the ability to step back and go, okay, cool, what's my micro and my macro and how do they align? And you've just got to get it to work for you. So yeah, absolutely really valid point, Darren. Paul, slightly off topic. What does a top performing dealership look like in a post-COVID era? That's a
cracker of a question.
It's a cracker of a question. I'm going to put that up there with what's the meaning of life. So
I'm going to have a shot at that one, Marty.
Go for it, mate.
So two things I think are going to happen. We need to change the intensity and the relationship and the quality of that relationship with our customers and our staff. Yep. Because one of the things that every bit of psychology stuff I've ever read in my life says, when stress makes you stupid, you require yourself to feel safer with the people who are around you, who you work with and who you associate with. One of these conversations is, I need to make people feel safe, whether they are our staff or our customers. And if we're not taking time to build safety around our relationships, we will push people away.
Yep. Really good point. And I think that ability to adapt and change. And one of the things I'm mindful of the dealerships that I've spoken to and over the last, let's say 8 weeks, is we've got to May and June and things have kicked off again. And they're like, everything's going to be fine. I'm like, is it? Because I don't think it will be fine in Q3. I think we need to be able to adapt and move and do things differently. And we're working with a lot of dealerships now and individuals about how they do that. And those that do that and come out the other end firing and ready to adapt, I think will be the ones that'll do the best. So yeah, awesome question, Paul. I'm sure that we continue to think about some answers around that.
But again, the conversation I'm going to have is proactivity says, well, do we wait for something to happen or do we make something happen? And I'm going to be a little bit biased towards let's make something happen. And it might be quieter, it might be louder, I don't know, but I know I'm going to generate some proactive activity that's structured around giving people a reason to come and see me from a service point of view or come and talk to me about a car. And I'm going to have to be creative. And as a manager, that's going to be difficult. So I'm going to pull my team into that conversation. So for the guys who are in this conversation, think about what do I do? Yeah, let's start talking about June because we know we have to face that. But we also, I think we've got the capacity to talk about, okay, well, what about the next quarter? How do we maximize that opportunity? And I think some of that planning can happen from some of the leaders that are sitting in front of this seminar today. They wouldn't be here if they weren't leaders. So well done to all of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now's the time. Yes, I want you to be planning and doing for June, but thinking about the next quarter. And proactivity is part of that conversation. Happy for you and I, Marty, to make ourselves available to these guys for some conversations around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to wrap it up there, guys. I know we're going 4 or 5 minutes over. So thank you so much. And one of the things that we really appreciate is those that are up for reading, learning, attending, doing things so they can say, okay, how can I be better at my job? So we really do appreciate it. Use that action plan. You can find, you've got the email address admin@plus4.com.au, but we've also just launched our website. stuandmarty.com is now live. So our contact information is on there as well. So feel free to do that. We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Our numbers are there. But again, we'll get that stuff to you. But like we said, admin@plus4.com.au, or if you want to find us in our mobile numbers, stuandmarty.com. So get out there, get after it. Let's kill the next 30 days. Let's make it work for us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everything you guys are doing out there. We know it's tough. But again, thanks so much for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Great to have you with us.
See yous.
Bye.